good and evil increase at compound interest. That's why the little decisions we make every day are of infinite importance. The smallest good act today is the capture of a strategic point from which a few months later you may go on to victories you never dreamed of.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Future Builders podcast by Empowered Liion.
This channel is about guiding you to live a life you desire by integrating your passion into your career.
We want to show you how you can make enough money while doing what you truly love. It is not a myth.
And we are doing this right now.
Yay!
Daniel, I want to ask you a question. How has your week been? Anything exciting or just as normal?
All right, Belle, I want to tell you that my week has been one of those crazy weeks that I had because first of all, I had my working stuff to do and I'm trying to balance between work, my loved ones, and my pet and keeping up with the endless to-do list. And most importantly, as I'm going to move on to a new place in a week, so I have to not just prepare for the travel, but also complete all the work beforehand.
Wow, that's a really busy week for you.
Yes, but I have to say, I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. It is a topic I think everyone can relate to.
Same here. So guys, today we are diving into something that might just be the hidden culprit behind those "why am I so exhausted" moment we all have. We are talking about microstress, those tiny, sneaky stresses that seem harmless but add up in ways we don't even realize.
Exactly. We will be sharing the incredible work of Karen Dillon, who is the co-author of The Microstress Effect, how little things pile up and create big problems, and what to do about it.
Now, if you are not familiar with her, Karen is not just any author. She's a former editor of the Harvard Business Review, co-author of several bestsellers, and a thought leader in how we navigate our professional and personal lives.
In this book, she interviewed and followed up with more than 300 individuals who are incredibly successful in their careers. But most of them are having problems in other areas of their lives, like not having a good relationship with their family. However, there are 10% of the people, which Karen noted as the 10 percenters, they are thriving and becoming a better self by handling and managing well about their stress coming from different areas from their lives.
And by the end of this episode, you are going to walk away with a better understanding of what microstress is, how it's affecting you every single day, often without you even realizing it. And most importantly, what you can do to take back control and reduce its impact on your life.
That's right, Belle. So whether you are feeling a little burnt out or just curious about why those small annoyances seem to stick with you, this episode is for you. Let's go into it.
Now, if you are hearing that the term microstress for the first time, don't worry. You're not alone. It's something that we all experience, but most of us don't have a name for it.
Exactly. So let's break it down. We all know what stress is, right?
Yep.
Those serious moments that really shake us, like losing a job, dealing with a major health issue, or navigating a significant life change. That's what we call macro stress. It's the kind of stress that is like really obvious to you. It is up there, and it's usually something we know we need to manage. Usually, macro stress happens, everyone around you knows that.
Yes, because you will keep repeating that you are really stressful right now.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the big ticket stresses. But here's the thing, those are not the only stresses affecting us. Now we talk about micro stress. These are the tiny, almost stresses that are unnoticed, but we encounter every day. Although we don't even notice them, but they add up over time and can be just as damaging as the big stuff.
Now, let me give you an example. You can picture this. You are one day, you're sleeping soundly at night, but suddenly someone in your house or your neighbor start using the vacuum machine. You unwillingly wake up and look at your phone. It is just 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, or maybe you are reading, your book in focus mode. Then suddenly your friend taps on your shoulder and asks you small questions that is like distracting you. They're actually not a huge matter, but this tension can stick with you throughout the day.
Exactly. Or how about this? Your boss casually mentions in a halfway conversation that they are rethinking the project priorities, and you are left wondering, wait, is what I have been working on for the last week still important? Or even the notification on your phone being pop out during your work that distracts you. These are those micro stresses, small, fleeting moments that don't seem like a big deal in the moment, but they linger, they accumulate, and before you know it, you're feeling drained without even realizing why.
And that is exactly the key difference between micro stress and macro stress. For macro stress, it hits you like a ton of bricks. You know it's there and you know you need to deal with it. But micro stress is sneaky. It's like a drip, drip, drip of stress like water throughout your day that builds up until you are feeling completely overwhelmed. But you can't quite put your finger on why.
Yeah, it's that cumulative effect that really gets you. By the end of the day, you're wiped out. Not because of one big thing, but because of all these little things that have been chipping away at you. And what's tricky about micro stress is that it often comes from the people who are closest to us. For example, our friends, family members, colleagues. It is just as a byproduct of everyday interactions.
And that's why it is so important to recognize these micro stresses and learn how to manage them before they pile up and cause real damage. We are going to dig into some strategies for that later. But first, it is crucial to start noticing where these micro stresses are coming from in your own life.
All right, let's dig a little deeper into the causes of microstress. Although the author provides 14 subcategories in the book, there are three big ones that we should talk about: exhaustion of personal capacity, depletion of emotional reserves, and challenges to identify and values.
Great. And we have touched on a few of these already, but let's break them down with some clear examples so everyone can relate.
First up, exhaustion of personal capacity. This one is mostly work related. It's that feeling when you're stretched too thin, trying to juggle too many tasks, and you're constantly in go mode. For example, think about those days when you've got back-to-back meetings all day. You're barely catching your breath before you're diving into the next thing. And by the end of the day, you're completely drained with nothing left in the tank for anything else.
Exactly. It's like running a marathon every day. But instead of the finishing line, there's just another race waiting for you the next morning. Can you imagine how tough it is? And it is not always about the big tasks. Sometimes it's the little things piling up. Like when you are already swamped with work and your boss casually drops another project on your desk, expecting you to fit in without a second thought.
Next, let's talk about the depletion of emotional reserves. This is when your emotional energy gets tapped out, often by the people around you. For instance, you had a small argument with a partner in the morning or worrying about a friend's text during a meeting. But another example could be constantly playing the role of the emotional anchor for others. Maybe you're the person everyone comes to with their problems. It is not that you don't care, but over time, it wears you down because you're giving so much of yourself emotionally with very little left to recharge.
For those of you listening, please pay attention to this. This is very tricky because the interactions often happen with the people you care about the most. You want to be there for them, but at the same time, it takes a toll on you. Imagine coming home after a long day, and instead of unwinding, you are hit with someone else's stress, and suddenly you are carrying that weight too.
Yes, so before when you care about others, you have to take care of yourself first. Lastly, there are challenges to identity and values. This is when something at work or in your personal life makes you question who you are or what you stand for. A good example is if you are asked to take on a project at work that doesn't align with your values, but you feel pressured to do it because it's part of your job. Or maybe you are in a situation where you have to act in a way that doesn't feel true to yourself just to fit in or keep the peace.
Right. And this can be really unsettling. It's one thing to be busy or emotionally drained, but when you start questioning your own identity or what you believe in, that can create a deep, lingering stress. I want to share a story about myself. I remember I was in my internship and I saw some problems in the workflow of the organization. I tried to think of a few solutions and presented to my manager. But he said it is not within our control. We just need to do what is within our scope. I wanted to help the entire company to become better, regardless of whether it falls under my department or not. But having an internship experience like that, it really doesn't align with my values, and it makes me don't feel like going back to that place to work anymore.
So, when you look at these three causes, exhaustion of personal capacity, depletion of emotional reserves, and challenges to identity and values, it is easy to see how they can quietly build up and create a lot of stress. They are not always obvious, but the impact is real.
Absolutely. And understanding these causes is the first step in figuring out how to manage and reduce the micro stresses in your life.
Now that we have covered the causes of microstress, let's talk about the impact it has on our daily lives. These little stresses might seem harmless on their own, but when they add up, they can really take a toll.
All right. So I want to show you guys some common symptoms. For example, have you had got like headaches, fatigue, or even trouble sleeping? Now, the thing is, it is quite normal for us to experience this. And most of the time, we don't even know what is causing them. Yeah, the next thing is what is really concerning is how micro stress can push people to the edge. It's like there is a ticking bomb inside, and each micro stress is another click closer to an explosion.
Exactly. Think of it as a domino effect. One small stressor might not seem like much, but when you keep adding more and more, eventually something's going to give. There's a story in the book about an executive named Brian who seemed to have it all together. Successful career, great family life. But he ended up having a panic attack out of nowhere. It wasn't a single big event that triggered it, but the buildup of countless micro stresses over time.
Right. And that is what makes microstress so dangerous. It is not just about feeling tired or having a headache. It's about how these small stresses chip away at your mental and emotional reserves. Another example in this book talks about Emma, a new manager who was so overwhelmed by constant questions from a nervous team member that she started doubting her own abilities. She felt like she was on the brink of quitting, and it all stemmed from the accumulation of micro stress.
And it is not just work related. These micro stresses can come from all aspects of life. It's either family, friends, or even daily routines. Before you know it, you're feeling like you're walking on a tightrope, and one more tiny thing could send you crashing down.
Exactly. That's why it is so important to recognize the impact of microstress before it leads to something bigger. When you are constantly at the edge, it doesn't take much to push you over. And that's why we need to be proactive in managing it.
So let's dive into how we can do that, how to spot these micro stressors early, and what strategies we can use to keep them from building up to the breaking point.
Absolutely. The first step is recognizing where these micro stressors are coming from. Once you can see them, you can start taking steps to reduce their impact. One of the key strategies the book talks about is setting boundaries, both at work and in your personal life.
Right. For example, there is a story in the book about the guy who was constantly overwhelmed because his boss was always brainstorming new ideas and casually throwing them in his way. The guy would take every suggestion as an urgent task, which led to him and his team being stretched too thin.
This is a common problem happening in the workplace. Imagine each employee has already got their routine tasks and projects on hand. Typically, they won't have extra time within the 9 to 5 period. Then, when the boss throw in something new, they all have to work overtime in order to get it done.
That's why he finally decided to ask his boss to rate the importance of each task on a scale of 10 to 1. This simple change made a huge difference. It allowed him to prioritize the real priorities and avoid unnecessary stress.
That's a great example. I think it is good to implement that when our company grows bigger,
Yes,
right?
I think so.
Yeah, when we have a new idea and communicate it to our team, it is important to attach a score to it. For instance, if the idea is rated 1, it means that is not on the priority. The team only has to do it when they have extra time. If it is rated at 5, then we can have a quick 15 minutes meeting sometime in the afternoon to go through about it. If it is rated at 10, it means that it is really urgent and the team should pause what they are doing and pay attention to this idea.
And it is not just about work. Another story from the book talks about a woman who has constantly getting texts from her kids during the day, asking for help with things that could easily wait until she got home. It was distracting her and adding to her stress. So she set up a rule that unless it was an emergency, they should hold off on an urgent request until she was home. This small boundary helped her focus better at work and reduce her overall stress.
Exactly. It's about taking control of those little things that can add up. Another key point the book makes is the importance of communication. Sometimes just being clear about what you can or cannot handle can prevent microstress from building up. There's a story about a manager who started ending meetings 5 minutes early so that everyone could clarify what their next steps were. This way, there was no confusion or last minute panic about what needed to be done.
That's such a simple but effective strategy. And speaking of communication, the book also highlights the importance of connecting with others outside of work. Having those strong, authentic relationships can really help you keep things in perspectives. For example, one executive mentioned in the book found that joining a running group helped him decompress after a stressful day. It wasn't just about the exercise, it was about the sense of community and support that made a difference.
Yeah, and those connections are crucial. That's why many people cannot succeed in getting a better shape by watching the instructions on the internet and do it alone. But when they hire a personal coach, things get more effective. When you have a support system, it is easier to deal with microstress because you are not carrying the burden alone. Plus, it gives you something positive to focus on outside of work, which can help balance out the stress.
So, whether it's setting boundaries, improving communication, or building strong relationships, the key takeaway here is that small changes can make a big difference. It's all about being proactive and taking steps to manage microstress before it manages you.
Exactly. By being aware and making these adjustments, you can prevent microstress from snowballing into something bigger. And that's what it's all about, taking control of your well-being one small step at a time.
Now we have laid the groundwork for understanding and managing microstress. Let's dive into some strategies from what the book calls the 10 percenters. These are the folks who seem to handle stress better than most and live fuller, more balanced lives as a result.
Yes, the 10 percenters are those high performers who not only manage their stress effectively, but also thrive in their personal and professional lives. So what are they doing differently? Let's break it down.
First up, they prioritize health. This means making physical health a foundation for managing stress. They understand that if their body isn't in good shape, it's a lot harder to deal with any kind of stress, big or small. This includes regular exercise, a healthy diet, and making sure that they got enough rest.
And that ties into what the book refers to as increasing your body budget. The idea here is to make sure you have enough physical and emotional reserves to handle the daily stresses that come your way.
It's about maintaining a steady balance so that when stress hits, you are not running on empty. Again, this comes down to sleep, diet, and exercise. Simple things, but they make a huge difference.
I recall myself back in 2019 when I just quitted my full-time job and focused on my business. Back then, I was really living on my savings. I didn't have significant income to cover my expenses. You know, in this situation, a normal person typically would choose to react negatively, like having bad emotions throughout the day, and this will create a downward spiral. But for myself, I was disciplined enough to exercise at least 4 times a week, despite my tough situation. In the short term, it seemed unrelated to my financial status, but in the long term, I would say it contributed to me a lot because I tend to think of new ideas while exercising that could grow my business. And at the same time, my health got improved as well.
Wow, that is a really, really inspiring story from you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Another key strategy from the 10 percenters is cutting off toxic relationships. The 10 percenters are really mindful about who they spend their time with. They minimize interaction with people who drain their energy or increase their stress levels. It doesn't mean they cut people out of their lives completely, but they set clear boundaries to protect their own well-being.
Right. And they also avoid being a source of secondhand stress for others. This means practicing good communication and emotional regulation so that they are not spreading their stress to those around them. It's about being aware of how your mood and actions can affect others and making a conscious effort to keep things positive.
Daniel, talking about secondhand stress, right? Actually, I have a personal story to share with everyone here.
Whoa.
I have been living in a small family for decades, and our emotions can significantly affect each other's mood. For example, when my sister and I have exciting news to share with my mom, for example, like we got a very high grades for my exam.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And when she arrived home with a poker face due to her workplace stress, right, it actually can really change the atmosphere entirely. Suddenly, me and my sister might find ourselves being scolded for no reason too, and our emotions quickly shift from excitement to stress and unhappiness.
Yeah, so that means that initially you guys are very excited about your grades, but when your mom comes back, you don't even dare to tell her.
Yes, because we are so afraid that it will become a reason for her to scold us back. So this dynamic is actually harmful to our relationships. as I grew slightly older, maybe like, you know, 15 or 16 years old, I began to share my feelings with my mom about how her moods affected us. Then she apologized, and gradually the situation improved a lot right now.
Whoa, that is really great. And I can totally relate to you, Belle. And on top of that, right, the next thing is those 10 percenters build diverse social networks. They understand the importance of having a variety of relationships to support them through different challenges. Whether it's friends, family, or colleagues, having a broad support system helps them stay resilient in the face of stress.
Finally, they live a full life. This means balancing different roles, like being a friend, family member, and professional, in a way that ensures they are well rounded and fulfilled. They don't let one area of their life dominate the others. Instead, they make time for what matters most to them, whether that's hobbies, relationships, or personal growth.
So, to sum it up, the 10 percenters are not superhuman. They just make intentional choices that help them manage stress and maintain a balanced life. By prioritizing health, maintaining emotional reserves, cutting out toxicity, supporting others, and living fully, they keep microstress from taking over their lives.
Precisely. And the great thing is, these are strategies anyone can adopt. You don't have to be a high performer to benefit from these practices. You just need to start incorporating them into your daily routine.
Right. It's all about making small, consistent changes that add up over time. The 10 percenters show us that it's possible to handle stress effectively and still live a life that's rich and rewarding.
As we start wrapping up our conversation, let's tie everything together with a thought that really resonates with the message of the book. C.S. Lewis once said, good and evil increased at compound interest. That's why the little decisions we make every day are of infinite importance. The smallest good act today is the capture of a strategic point from which a few months later you may go on to victories you never dream of.
That is such a powerful quote, Bell, and it really aligns with what we have been talking about. The idea is that the small intentional choices we make every day, whether it is setting boundaries, prioritizing our health, or nurturing our relationships, can have a huge impact over time. These are not just little actions, they are strategic points that set us up for success and well-being in ways we might not even realize yet.
Exactly, and that's where the heart of what we do at Empowered Liion comes in. We started with the intention to guide others in embracing synergistic living, integrating your career, passion, and wellness into a cohesive, rewarding life. It's about making those small, daily choices that align with who you are and what truly matters to you.
Right. Because when you focus on those more positive actions, you are not just managing stress, you are building a life that is balanced, fulfilling, and ultimately more rewarding. It's about setting yourself up for victories you might not even have imagined yet.
So, as we close out today's episode, remember that every little decision counts. By making mindful, intentional choices every day, you can create a life that's not just successful in the traditional sense, but one that truly integrates your passion, career, and wellness into something extraordinary.
Absolutely. Here's to living well, embracing synergistic living, and making those small changes that lead to big, unexpected victories.
And if you are looking to dive deeper into aligning your career with your life's purpose, don't forget to check out our free career fulfillment audit. You can find it at www.empoweredleon.com/CFA. This tool is designed to help you evaluate where you are in your career journey and identify the steps you can take to make your work more fulfilling. Remember, the path to a synergistic life starts with understanding where you stand and where you want to go. Thanks for joining us on The Future Builders by Empowered Liion, and keep building your future, one small strategic choice at a time. Stay tuned. Bye.